the show, everybody. My name is Rulon Brown, and today I am chatting with Alexa Tarantino, a New York-based saxophonist, woodwind doubler, composer, and educator, and without a doubt, the most astounding solfeggio improviser I have ever heard in my life. We're going to talk about that a little later, but I also want to just lead in telling you a little bit about this amazing artist. Alexa Tarantino's debut album, Winds of Change, won critical praise, including a top spot on Jazz Week's Top 100 Records of 2019. And in that same year, Alexa Tarantino earned a spot among the top 5 alto saxophonists in Jazz Times Critics Poll. Alexa Tarantino is a highly respected educator in addition to her work as a performer. Currently, she's on faculty at the Jazz at Lincoln Center Youth Education Programs and directs one of their high school jazz academy big bands. She's also taken on a larger role at JALC's Jazz for Young People's program, bringing music into New York City schools. Alexa just launched a brand new education initiative called the Alexa Approach. You can learn about that at approach.alexatarantino.com. And as you know by now, I am a diehard saxophone geek, so I'm thrilled for the chance today to talk with Alexa Tarantino. So let's get into it. Alexa Tarantino, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Rulon. I'm so happy to get the chance to chat and connect. It's going to be great.
So I first heard about you when I was surfing some videos, some saxophone videos on a forum, and I found a video of you and Chad Lefkowitz Brown. And you're sitting in what appears to be a green room. He's there with his tenor, and you both start into Charlie Parker's Billy's Bounce. And you are solfege singing flawlessly bebop. And you're trading and you're trading solos and it was like the most effortless thing I'd seen. And I had no idea who you were at the time. And I was like, wow, that's a really amazing jazz singer, ears, the whole bit. And then a few days later, I saw a video with you performing alongside Camille Thurman with Wynton Marsalis. I think it was an octet or
Yeah,
larger.
maybe. Yeah.
And you were absolutely just burning it down. Amazing energy, fluidity, language, just amazing improvising, playing in that video that I saw. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the same person. I have to learn more about her work. What is this about? And then of course I just fell into the amazing things that you're doing, both as an artist and an educator. So if you're watching this, if you don't know anything about Alexa and her music, you need to do at least 3 things. Right now, you need to go check out her website, alexatarantino.com. You also need to spend some time checking out her challenge, So You Think You Can Solfege. That is awesome. She does all these great things. I'm going to let her talk about it. But anyway, that's how I happened upon her work. So Alexa, tell us a little bit about how the heck you have gotten into this amazing spot where you are in New York, in the scene, in your particular artist path.
Thanks so much, Rulon. That's an awesome, that's such a fun intro. I appreciate it. And so glad we were able to kind of meet each other, I guess, through the solfege videos. Yeah, so I've been in New York for about 5 years, and I just feel really fortunate. I'm very lucky to be able to work with the people that I do. I grew up in Connecticut, so, not too far away from the New York scene, and I would come in on Monday nights to see the Vanguard band play at the Vanguard, and I had some great mentors, early exposure to jazz at Lincoln Center in high school. So I just knew that I wanted to go for it and wanted to try being here in New York as a performer. And yeah, here we are, more than 5, but 5 years later in New York, I guess.
That's excellent. So you came up very organically through that community, literally the geography, the players, the tradition of New York jazz. And now you've branched out and you have quite a following online. Tell us a little bit about how you've been working with players around the world online. However, I'm interested in as an artist, collaborations. I know you're working with Lauren Sevian with LSAT, but then you also do your work as an educator. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really like to work with people that I love, and Lauren is one of my best friends, and one of my, she actually was a a role model sort of figure for me as I was coming up as well, and still is a role model for me, certainly. So I have always been inspired by people like Lauren and others who I've collaborated with. And I've had many amazing mentors and teachers that have really imparted so much knowledge into my playing and my understanding of teaching, that teaching just became another passion of mine along with playing. So I've always really been interested in sort of breaking that stereotype that if somebody is a music teacher or a band teacher, it's because they didn't make it as a performer, or they couldn't make it as a player. I've always been sort of worked to break that, because I find, teaching, especially teaching in a public school or band director type setting, is so hard and so challenging, also so rewarding, but it's I have a lot of respect for people in those positions. And so I've just tried to fuse as much education into what I'm doing as possible. While I sort of tried the public school teaching thing, and it wasn't really for me, but from that point on, I decided, okay, I want to be doing master classes and residencies and things, like initiatives online to connect students from all over that don't have a community where they are, whatever it might be. So I love, because I think people can see me as a bit closer to their age, current students. I'm able to connect with them in a way that's sort of like a friend or a role model, sort of thing, hopefully. But because my experience is a bit closer to theirs, than for me, when I was looking at people, I was looking at, Phil Woods and Dick Oates, who were just like heroes. And I kind of am hoping to be that bridge for people. Like, we all of us have those heroes up there that we look at, that we would like dream to run into. And I kind of want to help people. Like, if I could just be a stepping stone on people's paths to kind of like connect that. I'm very lucky to work with some of my heroes, and then to take that knowledge and bring it to people who maybe don't have the ability to come to New York or do competitions or whatever it is. That's the goal.
That's great. So tell us about the Alexa approach.
Sure. So I love, as I said, I love teaching, but we only have so many hours in a day, and with this whole virtual thing, private teaching online has become very popular. But it's just, for me, it's like, it's not the same, obviously, as in-person teaching. And there's so much of just the spirit and the connection of it that I really miss. And I was trying to think of a way to be able to reach more people with my materials, because of course, when I work with a student one-on-one, it's great. But I was trying to figure out, is there a way for me to get this material to more people, and for them to be able to kind of digest it on their own time? Because I don't know about you, but I think, everyone's getting very zoomed out, and
Yep.
especially just with like time, resources, energy, online offerings. I was just feeling like I wanted to try something where people were able to do it on their own time, as opposed to like, oh, I have a 5 o'clock Zoom meeting. So this is a membership platform, and basically I'm just uploading tons of content, different exercises, lessons, demonstrations, whether it's my favorite long tone exercises to the different ways that I'll practice my scales. It could be a lesson on how I approach the diminished sound. It could be just a quick solo performance of me on a particular tune and saying, hey, I'm going to try to play this tune solo using these elements, and have, so hoping that it's accessible for people of all levels. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff kind of catered towards learning some, maybe rote songs, jazz tunes by ear, that type of thing. And then also, like I mentioned, up to things like diminished scales and whatever. So, and there will be things like that are accessible to all instruments, but then, maybe some of my favorite saxophone specific things too.
That's great. So an on-demand, stepwise approach that models from an excellent player and educator. Then people can kind of go at their own pace as they progress as an improviser and as an instrumentalist. That
Yeah.
sounds really timely. We need things like that, especially now, right? This is good. I'm thinking of my 11-year-old daughter who's now starting sax, and maybe she can get into this too.
That's so
Um,
awesome.
so tell me, I've got a series of questions that I wrote down that I was just really curious about for you as an artist, and I'll just kind of give them to you. You can go as rapid fire or deep as you like on the responses, but I'd love to hear about maybe what was the most stunning concert that you heard as an audience member?
Ooh. There was one night a few years ago at the Village Vanguard when I heard Tom Harrell. And it was, I forget the name of the ensemble now, but it was with Ugana Okegwo on bass. Charles Pillow, one of my old teachers, was playing woodwind. Wayne Escoffrey was playing tenor. I think Meg Okura was playing violin, Jonathan Blake on drums, and maybe Danny Grissett on piano. I don't quite remember, but it was one of his more expanded kind of compositional ensembles, and it was amazing. I think because Tom Harrell, well, he's one of my favorite composers, one of my favorite improvisers, and he's just such a kind of quiet, calm presence, doesn't speak much, doesn't really give off a lot of kind of personal moments as a leader on stage, but the music just speaks for itself that much more.
Wow. I can very vividly remember hearing Tom Harrell live for the first time in Miami. And I agree with you, what you just said. It was just him and a rhythm section in a small club in Miami. I can't remember the club. And it drew me in more than the most flamboyant theatrics, costume, or anything, because it was just pure music straight from him. It was just, he does have this amazing musicality that he expresses live in the moment. Wow, thank you for sharing that. That group sounds pretty stellar as well.
I know.
That's quite the gathering. Wow. So what's here's a hypothetical. The moment has come and you're called on to create and inspire, but you're just not feeling it. What do you do?
Oof, yeah, you got to make it happen. You kind of just gotta snap yourself out of whatever funk you're in. At least I do. I have to kind of snap myself out of whatever mood I'm in. And as my mom would have told me, like as a little kid, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, just kind of like get into it. Yeah, there have been many moments where I kind of feel, I'm in a little bit of a funk, or I'm feeling like I'm in a rut, or maybe I'm nervous about a part of a piece that's about to come in like 30 seconds. And I'm kind of like, okay, 25 seconds until this high F sharp. Okay, 20, I'm like nervous. And at a certain point, you kind of just have to like surrender all that stuff and just like trust the musicianship, trust the musicality, and go for it. Put your best foot forward.
So you talk about surrender. And one of the things that personally really changed music for me was the Kenny Werner effortless mastery method of surrendering, releasing. What do you do? I don't know. What is it you do to surrender to that moment? Do you have any tricks? Do you have any mental talismans that you hold to, or what is it that you do to surrender in the moment? Because it's clear that you do. I mean, anybody who watches you perform, it doesn't feel academic. It doesn't feel, it truly feels fluid hearing you play and watching you play. So how do you surrender? I know that that's kind of a silly question, but I really want to know.
Yeah, it's a great question. And thank you so much. It means a lot to me to hear, how my performing comes off and that has affected you. That's really nice, because inside my head, a lot of the time it's like, oh my God. But
Really?
I mean, yeah, it's so funny because, well, of course, Chick Corea recently passed away, and I think we were all so shocked and saddened by that. And a lot of people have found a video on YouTube of us playing with Wynton's band, and that's exactly what that moment was. I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I'm about to solo with Chick Corea. Like I had no idea. I
Wow.
was just like, and a lot of times I'm thinking like, this is it. Like, oh my god, like if I can't bomb this, like this is just too much. But a lot of people have said like, wow, and I think what it is, it's like it's a very quick switch, where I think it has to do with like having the other members of the band be there. It's not like I'm standing up and playing like a concerto by myself, a solo saxophone concerto. And I think it's just reminding myself that it's not really about me. Like I might be the person that's soloing or improvising, but it's not about me because I can't do it without the pianist and the bassist and the drummer and whatever it is. And I'm so lucky because every gig that I'm on, all of those people behind or next to me are so creative and so inspirational that I could draw a complete blank and they would be feeding me enough information to like take me, to the next level. So I think it's like a switch because beforehand, coming up to that real nervous moment of I'm about to do a solo with Chick Corea or whoever it is. That's a very like focused, that's centered on me. That type of thinking is centered on me. Like, I'm so nervous. I can't mess it up. Are my keys sticking? No, because I have my spit sponge. But you know what I mean? Like just checking, make sure everything's all good,
Yeah.
all good. And then that's all very focused on me. But then when it gets there, it's like, okay, wait, it's not about me. Like switch, like the light comes on and it just becomes about creating with a group. So that's like, it's a very magical moment, I feel.
Wow. Wow. So if I'm okay, first of all, I got to go check out that Chick recording somewhere. So it sounds like I'm hearing you say that you just make sure that you've done your work in advance. You make sure you got your gear working. You make sure that you're there present with yourself, but then you really lean into the people you're there with creating that moment. You lean on what it is they're pressing against you with, the notes, the feeling, the vibe, and you
Mm-hmm.
let go into that. I mean, that's what I'm kind of hearing you say. And
Yeah,
wow,
absolutely.
that's beautiful. I mean, that's jazz. I mean, that's really any artistry, truly any collaborative art, but especially jazz. To me, that's the beauty of why I love jazz. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, so looking back on your musical journey, and this could be from wherever you feel your musical journey began, what do you wish you did less of?
Worried. I wish I worried less. Yeah. Um, I wish that I worried less and cared less about what other people thought of my playing or of where I was at that particular point. Um, I think there are many moments in maybe the way that I came up in high school, whether you're auditioning for like your all-state band or you're auditioning for a summer camp or whatever, and you're the new person in a group or you're the only young girl in the group or whatever it is. There are many different factors that can make you a little uneasy or uncomfortable or anxious and lose that kind of confidence. Although I'm not sure, I do think I don't think it's, losing all confidence, but it's like a little bit of a questioning, like, okay, am I really gonna, how am I really gonna do? Am I really gonna stack up to so and so, or what are they gonna think about me? Or, they probably think I'm just some like young girl that, can't play or whatever it is. And to those moments that I had, I say good riddance because it's like karma, 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 karma. And, to anybody or any moments where I felt a little unsure, I'm kind of like, okay, we stuck it out and here we are, like, I would just say to anybody, whether you're second guessing or worrying, about your abilities because you are the minority in the group, or because you're new, or because your equipment is broken, whatever it is. Just trusting that you did the work, kind of like what we were saying before, trusting that you did the work, trusting that you deserve to be somewhere, and that you deserve to use your musical voice, and that you are in the right place for you. I think that's the biggest thing, because I remember competing in high school with certain people around the country. And they seemed to be up here, and I felt like I was down here. And then I was kind of like, I think I thought about this maybe a few weeks ago. Some people's names came up, and I thought, where is that person now? And one of the people that I thought was up here has left music completely and gone into something completely different, you know? And one
They're
of
a
the other,
dentist now.
yeah, yeah. And one of the, exactly. Well, it's like, so it's just like, why did I spend all that time worrying about if I was going to be like that person? You know, I wish I had just been happy to be me, and trust that, like, if I wanted to do this for a living, I would make it there.
That's fantastic. Are you familiar with the work of Brene Brown?
I'm new to Brene Brown.
I love her stuff. And when I hear you talk like you just did, to me, that reminds me of her research and her work. If you don't know Brene Brown, check her out. She's an amazing researcher, speaker, and she talks about belonging, about shame, about community, and so much of what you're saying to me goes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
You belong where you are, where you're standing in that group. When you show up and you want to make music, you belong there, and you don't need to worry about the other crap, because that's fitting in versus belonging, right? Do I fit in with these guys? Right? So wow, I love it. And to hear you say that about your journey inspires me, because um I think it's of course not just about music. It's not just about going on a bandstand, right? It's
Yeah.
about how you choose to live, and how much of it you can really let go and be present with yourself where
Yeah.
you're standing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about having a life in music or in the arts, is that um, there are so many parallels just to being a good person and being a good citizen of a community and giving back to others and being selfless. You know, there are so many ways to embody those qualities in the music, like in the actual work that we do, and to inspire others through the work that we do.
Mhm.
Um, and then to live like that off of the bandstand too.
Amen. Okay, so and you might have already touched on this, but you suddenly have this superpower to place one idea into the minds of young musicians. It's like the next plot for a DC comic. The master teacher. What is that thought?
Um, yes, I was thinking about this, and just as a side note, when you told me that question, when I saw superpower, it made me think about how in a different interview somebody had said, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And immediately, it was not musical. It was not musical. Immediately, I said my superpower would be to eat like without consequence, like without
Oh,
calories. Like I could like eat whatever I wanted, you know, like for the rest of my
nice.
life, and like travel. And so I laughed so hard when I saw your the superpower question. I was like, that answer is not going to cut it this time.
That does sound like a good way to live, though. I like that. Eat
Um,
anything, travel eating.
yeah, right. So my musical thought would probably be, well, if I'm thinking academically, the thought would be to get students to play everything in all 12 keys as early as possible.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
like 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 beginner on saxophone, like under like, and so um I guess it's not so, it sounds academic, but it's not so academic because the way that I teach students, the way that I was taught to teach students from my education degree at Eastman, it's all very based in teaching and learning by ear. And so with solfege, which is like how my whole brain is wired, as you touched on earlier, if you learn do, re, mi, fa, so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you learn that in one key, If your teacher, says to you, okay, we're going to play do, re, mi, fa, so, and we are in the key of B flat do. And so this is do, and they teach you, like how to put your fingers and all that stuff. The only thing that you need to do from then on is know what buttons to press to make that happen in all the other keys. So like no key is really harder than another. It's just unfamiliar, or it's like not what you first started learning. Like we all learn in concert B flat. Saxophonists almost always learn G as like their first note.
Right.
But like what happens if their first note was G sharp? Then nobody would be afraid of sharps anymore.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that would be my musical thought would be sort of this on the early stages of getting comfortable in those keys.
I love that. So I just want to dig into this a little bit. So for me, when I think about learning and teaching solfege, it's really just like you're saying, it's about the relationships of tones to a given tonal center. I mean, if I had to say it as simply as I probably could, that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you understand those relationships, if you can name and hear those relationships and then also speak or sing or play in a given relationship, you can transform it, you can transpose it, you can move it more fluidly. So it seems like in the US, especially, we're not teaching it as much as, for instance, Central. I spent some time teaching in Central America, and I mean, everybody knew it. Europe, solfeggio is just part of a basic beginning music understanding. So when you're working with students, for instance, in New York City schools, and you're teaching them this, are you teaching movable do? Are you teaching fixed? Are you introducing it as just a set of sonic understandings? How do you, what is your framework when you're starting to introduce that as the vehicle that carries you through all 12 keys?
So I was trained first in movable do, and then as a young kid in movable do, and then at each of the schools that I went to at Eastman and Juilliard, the ear training department was in fixed do. So I was kind of doing a little bit of both. Like at Eastman, the music education department was in movable and the theory department was in fixed. So at any given day, I would do like both on particular assignments.
Theory was in fixed?
Yeah.
That seems backwards to me.
The ear training and Juilliard too, the oral skills classes, they're all in fixed do. And then, wow. but music education, they did movable. So with my students, I do movable because I want them to, to play do, re, mi, fa, so in the key of B flat do, and then figure that out in all other keys. So if they're going to play that in concert B do now, I want them still to just think do, re, mi, fa, so, because that's how you can transfer. That's how you make the connection through all 12 keys. But in terms of, let's see, in terms of learning tunes, because with jazz tunes, like since we're flipping and flopping between so many different keys, I think it's a little confusing to try to move around so much and say these first 4 bars are in B flat and these next 4 bars are in E flat and these next 4 bars are in A flat. So I am sort of fixed when it comes to just like analyzing tunes. I'll either try to keep it to the home, kind of the main home key. That is sort of like the fixed do. But also just my brain's a little weird and I hear everything as it relates to B flat. So I might just look at a tune and analyze it with B flat being do, like no matter what. And it's sort of like a very fixed situation.
Now, tell me about your weird brain. You said it. How did that happen? How did you get to a point where B flat was kind of yours? Oh my goodness, do you hear that? That's snow falling off my roof.
Really? Oh my God.
That was a huge cascade of snow falling off my roof. So how do you think that developed? Because I really love learning about the idiosyncrasies of where people find comfort or familiarity and how it works for them. So how is it B flat becomes almost your home base like that?
I
How do you
think
think
it's
that developed?
from learning that as your first note in school, and then every time you go to band class, okay, everybody, let's tune up. Play me your concert B flat. Oh, and then like every day for many, many, many minutes a day, just kind of focusing on that note. I think I developed some type of like relative pitch around it.
Wow.
And then yeah, so that's just kind of, I would always just hear do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And so if I hear like, music playing in the background, I'll, maybe start like fingering along with it if I hear it. And I'll hear the solfege syllables as it relates to, so if I'm like fingering along and I know that I hear somebody playing what is a D on my horn, I'll be thinking like, so, is D is G is 5 in the key of G. So it's a whole thing. But with my students, I mean, I don't get that much that deep into it. I just try to make sure they have solfege understanding for context of scales and intervals and learning tunes.
Wow. Um, do you mind if I ask you a harmonic question, since we're talking a
Sure.
lot about melody and the relationship to the harmony? I had a chance to study with Hadley Caliban, and he was a protege of Dexter Gordon,
Hmm.
and uh, he drove into me this idea of tonic dominant, tension release constantly. And to him, that was the foundation of all push pull and all tonal music, especially bebop. And no matter what you do, you're stretching, you're pulling the dominant until it brings you to a release of the tonic. Um, you've talked about solfege. Can you talk a little bit how you feel harmony? What is your sense of if there was a foundational principle that you, just like we're talking about the foundational principle of movable melody and the relationships of melody, what would you describe as kind of a foundation of how you think about harmony?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I have a very similar approach in terms of tension and release. And I guess the word that comes to mind for me is gravity. So I think about like, whenever we're going somewhere, heading towards a particular landing point, particular home chord, it's all kind of like pulling us there. And so I like to play inside the chord changes. I love to play bebop and stuff, but I also really like to add things that are unexpected, a little more spontaneous, a little bit more angular, some different colors that kind of like lead us in a different way down to that home point. So it might be as simple as, I don't know, taking a solo and really emphasizing the sharp 11 through the first couple of choruses and having that sharp 11 eventually resolve to whatever it is. So I'm always kind
Hmm,
of thinking of like, okay, let me try this now, and then how will I get myself out of it? Like, how do I land that type of a thing?
cool. So I heard you say landing, gravity, and color. Do you consider yourself, you know how there's visual learners, there's tactile, there's auditory. Do you consider yourself weighted in one particular direction with how you take in information? Is it mainly auditory? Is it visual?
I think visual. I think I'm a visual learner and an auditory learner.
Cool.
Yeah, I think so. But I guess the gravity is very like, what is that, tactile feeling? Like you just kind of feel it. But something about colors really like speaks to me. Colors, themes, motives, things like that, or
Yeah,
motifs. Yeah.
yeah. I know from watching some of your YouTube videos, uh, the different levels of embellishment. I forget the word that you used a word for the 3 degrees you were doing, and I'm
Oh
spacing it
yeah.
right now. But I thought that was beautiful. How did you describe that again?
Maybe ornamentation.
Yeah, yeah, it was like different degrees of ornamentation where you would start basically add and add. I thought that was such a beautiful way to describe it. And to me, it feels a lot like dance, right? How much you hit on beats or on melodies versus floating and like that gravity thing you're talking about. To me,
Yeah,
that's what, for when I'm listening to a great improviser, it moves my body in unexpected, wonderful ways that makes me want to move,
that's
right?
awesome. Yeah.
No. Okay, so let's talk sax geeky stuff. You have played hundreds and hundreds of different instruments. You're a doubler. You've played flutes, clarinet, and you've played all kinds of stuff. So of the different saxophones, you probably have a favorite. Can you talk about one of your favorite saxophones to play, a specific instrument? Tell us what made it special to you. What is it that drew you to that and kept you wanting to play it?
Yeah, the alto is definitely my favorite, and I would say soprano is a close second. I think alto, just the range of its voice is somewhat equivalent to where mine is, so I can kind of feel like I'm singing. Um, and I really actually like this. I really like tenor sounds, and I'm really influenced by a lot of tenor players, but I like to kind of transfer that onto alto. So I might, I do a lot of work in like the upper register of the alto, but I really like being able to have a deeper or bring out a darker, deeper character in the lower register as well. So I think that's what I would say for alto. And then with soprano, something about the sound feels a little more feminine to me, actually, which is interesting. I
Oh,
feel like alto feels like a little bit more masculine, and soprano feels a little bit more feminine for me when I'm playing. So they kind of bring out like different aspects of my playing, I think, and my improvising.
I love that. Um, so you mentioned Dick Oates earlier, and he played with Flim and the BBs, and his soprano playing with that band, that was the first time I heard him. And then, of course, his other, super heavyweight jazz stuff. His soprano playing and I love his soprano playing.
Yeah, me
And
too.
then, of course, you hear Train, and it's much more aggressive. It's much more biting. It's brash. Um, that's interesting that you feel it's more feminine. I'd never thought,
For
but
me.
I love it. Yeah, yeah, and that makes sense. Um, cool. So who do you love to listen to as soprano players? I have to ask that.
Well, I love actually my favorite soprano solo is from a Maria Schneider record, live at the Jazz Standard, her arrangement of Days of Wine and Roses, and Tim Reese is playing soprano on that solo, I believe. So him, Dick Oates obviously has always been an influence. His playing. I think Steve Wilson is somebody that
Hmm.
I studied a little bit with when I first moved to New York, and I always loved his playing. Um, I think that's everybody. Oddly enough, like I think Maria Schneider's saxophone section is like what sort of there because there are so many woodwind, doubles in her music, and some people like Dick Oates or from his work, but in Maria's group, I would say like Rich Perry, Charles Pillow, who's a teacher of mine. I was a student of his, and Tim Reese, Steve Wilson, all those saxophone players, their approach, I think, kind of really fed into how I play the doubles. After I was just checking out those records for so long when I started doubling. So
That's great. Yeah, that's what a repertoire.
yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so uh, while we're talking about sax stuff, I noticed that you have some beautiful mother of pearl inlays on your silver plate. Is that a Yamaha Customs EX?
Yes,
Is it
custom Z. Yep.
okay? It's a Z. And and tell us a little bit about that. That's your main alto that you play daily, right?
Yes. Yes. Should I get it? I can get it. It's very
Yeah, let's.
okay. Let
I
me.
want to geek out on the horn a little bit. Show me what you're playing on, and like I haven't seen that mother of pearl inlay. Like who did it? Is that Tomoji in
Awesome.
New York?
Yes,
Is it like
yeah. Let me get it.
okay?
It's just I'll pause our recording. I'll be right back. Here it is. Here's the alto. So yeah, you were talking about these here. This X,
Yeah.
this mother of pearl added. So Tomoji did this for me at Yamaha. He's
So
amazing.
if people don't know, Tomoji Hirakata, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes,
I believe
yes.
that's yeah. He's a senior technical specialist for Yamaha at the Atelier in New York. And his work is absolutely phenomenal. And so he's customized your setup with some amazing inlays on the side keys, the palm keys.
Yep. He also gave me a little bit of bling in here. These are little
Oh my gosh, nice, nice. Adjustment
and
screw bling.
yes, and then so right here. And
Is that low B flat standard, or is that maybe it's just the reflection? It almost looks a little more scooped,
um
but maybe that's
I,
standard.
I think it's standard.
Oh, okay.
What did we do? We did a lot of different stuff to this. So Tomoji, he surprised me with the mother of pearl, which was really amazing. What we did when I first got this to kind of customize it was he shifted the whole right hand palm key section, and he brought it down because it was
Really?
too high for my hands to reach. It was like a little uncomfortable for me. It was like a really large jump. It was like up here that they were kind of set maybe an inch higher or something.
Wow.
And
Cool.
so he brought everything down for me a little bit
And
in
when
that.
you say down, you mean down on the sax body tube, not down in height. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So like these three items were like maybe up here,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and he brought everything down a little bit for me because it was too much for my, like, it was like a big reach for me to, if
Yeah.
I was going to go
Yeah.
for like a high F or something. Um, what else? We did a lot of adjustment to the palm keys, and I think brought those down a little bit. Because I like everything very close and I have smaller hands. Um, and he added, you have the option to have the thumb rest and the upper and lower thumb rest to be either plastic or this kind of gold plate situation. So I did this as the gold, but the plastic's just more comfortable for my thumb. And what else?
Can I
Ah,
ask you about your mouthpiece? I'm noticing something.
oh, of course.
So
Well, there's no read
you're
on
playing
it.
a Van Doren? Is that what is that? What is it?
V5,
Oh, V5. Okay.
A35 tip opening, gold MO ligature, and then I use ZZ size 3 reeds.
ZZ.
The
Is
the
that the
Van
drop?
Doren ZZ. They're like the
Oh,
black
okay.
box with the
So
little
you're
orange.
using threes with that tip opening. And do you I do you tend to play with kind of a soft bottom lip and just a gentle kind of bottom lip? Or are you more of a tight embouchure? What if
I think yeah, maybe a little softer because I like to change things. I like to have a little flexibility, get some different colors out of my positioning. Uh it depends. It depends on kind of what I'm playing. But yeah,
yeah.
for the most part, I think a bit softer.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask is I noticed your mouthpiece is quite deep onto the cork, which for a chamber like that suggested, oh, you're playing probably softer, right? If someone's really biting hard, they're going to go way too sharp that far in, I would
Right.
think. But that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't
Cool.
know. That is where I've always had it right here.
Do you, but you're not using any custom baffling in that or anything, right? That's yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention the neck is a different, it's not the standard neck that came with the horn, it's the E1 neck with a little bit of with the gold
Beautiful.
situation here. So this is like, I think the middle of the road in terms, there's like a F and a G and a C or something like that. So this is the E1 neck, custom Z neck. Just I think it gave me just a little bit more brightness, perhaps. I don't necessarily like to have like a super, super bright sound, but I like to, I don't know, I like a little more presence, a little more zing. So of
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
course.
So you have been so gracious with your time. I want to just make sure that we've covered any topic that you want to share. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or discuss and share with listeners?
I think I'm all good. I'm just happy to hang, so happy to connect. I'm so grateful to you and everybody at Key Leaves for keeping me like all stocked during quarantine. I've got my spit sponges, which have been getting a lot of use because I leave my alto out way more than I normally would. Normally it's all packed away and on the road and all this stuff. And I have been leaving it out on my stand a lot of, during the day and picking it up and practicing every now and then. And so that's what happens. So yeah, it's been good though. And yeah, I think if anybody, is looking for a little inspiration or motivation, there are so many amazing offerings online from, all of the Key Leaves artists. I think we're just super happy to be a part of the Key Leaves community. And thank you for featuring Alexa Approach and the vocab, the whatever I call it, Express Jazz vocab videos. I'm so glad you like those. It's all good. We're all good.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for what you are about and what you're doing. I'm really excited to continue hearing and watching your journey, and I'm excited to see what people how they engage with the Alexa approach. I think it's great, and from what I've seen so far of the content that you're sharing, it really looks fantastic. So everybody, please get to alexatarantino.com, go to approach.alexatarantino.com, check out her amazing music and educational resources, and of course keep making music, because that's what it's about.
Thank you
so much, Alexa.
Thanks, Rulon. You're awesome.
We'll talk to you again soon.